look back historically speaking, and you go all the way from like the Lydian stater, which is like the first
Yeah.
coin, all the way up to where we are today, it still very much follows that like hockey stick curve. Like there is a very, very big jump between the fiat system today and stables, and it's a much larger jump than a lot of people realize. And it happened, within the span of 10 years.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Talking Intentionally. Today we're speaking with Dante Reminick. Dante is known for his Twitter posts about stablecoins and how he wants to live his life, pretty much using stablecoins for everything from airplane lounges to, paying for his wedding. So it's a really interesting conversation to speak with him. Obviously, Axel is in the business of helping people earn on their stables. So we're really happy to get a chance to speak with Dante. I hope you enjoy this conversation. And as always, let me know if you have any feedback in the comments below, someone you'd like to see on the podcast, or feedback for how we can make this improve. Till then, see you and be well. Bye. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Talking Intentionally. Today we have a really cool baller who's actually had a lot of tweets go viral on Twitter recently. So that's actually why we reached out to him. His name's Dante, obsessed with the world of stablecoins. But yeah, welcome to the show, Dante. How you hanging?
I'm hanging well, Jacob. I appreciate you guys having me. Love what you guys are building at Axel. So this should be a lot of fun.
Sweet. And he is an Axel user. So, easiest way to get on Talking Intentionally is to be an Axel user. But just kidding. No bias at all. Was going to say we're both obsessed with the world of stable coins and yield and everything in that world. Would love to hear your story into how you got into crypto writ large, and then how you kind of found this niche of stable coins to be something you want to commit your life to, or at least, a sizable chunk of it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the crypto story and the stablecoin story are one and the same for me. So the first company that I ever started was actually a nonprofit that funded micro businesses in East Africa. So I would, raise a bunch of money from the US, and I would need to send that over to various different countries in East Africa. And that was like my first introduction to holy shit, these rails suck. Right? Like there every single time I had to send money over, I wanted to bang my head against the wall repeatedly. Uh, and then I also had the opportunity to go there and like witness what life was like for populations that have really really terrible financial infrastructure, really really terrible banking rails. And so I sort of got those two experiences, and that led me to realize how big of a gap there was between the way that money should work in my mind and the way that money actually does work, right? Like when you and I send emails to each other, it doesn't matter what email provider we're using or what device we're on. We can do that. It sends because it's data, right? And money just simply doesn't work like that. And I think that it really should. So at that time when I was, building that nonprofit, I had no idea what crypto was all about. A few years later, like most people, read the Bitcoin white paper, went down a rabbit hole that I haven't quite been able to come out of. And Bitcoin was an investing vehicle for me and everything like that. But when stablecoins came around, I was like, okay, you know, this is the answer, right? This is the thing that can really solve all of the problems that I had witnessed firsthand. And I think that a lot of people get into crypto and blockchain to make 1,000x and do all that stuff. I got into the space because I actually saw what things were like firsthand, and I saw blockchain and decentralized financial technology as a means of changing that, and of improving that. Like I consider myself to be a stablecoin maximalist in like the most pure and raw form. And the reason is because I see stablecoins as just a functionally better form of money. And when you're able to change the way that the world interacts with money and that individuals interact with money, you're also able to change the way that they can, go out and provide for themselves and their families and build wealth and sort of break that cycle that they've been trapped in for such a long time. We've seen that happen real time. If you look at a lot of developing countries in the US, like we have one of the most expansive financial technology industries and financial industries in the entire world, and that's part of the reason why we've been able to attract capital and disperse capital and save capital and spend capital and everything like that. And so for me, stablecoins are like what I think about all day, every day. It's what I live and breathe and eat and shit every single day. This is what I'm going to be dedicating, the rest of my life to. And again, the reason for that is just because I see this as a monumental step forward for not only just like disparate financial systems, but for the world in general. So I'm here to say that's why, if you go to visit my Twitter, that's all I really talk about. I think if you, indexed my Twitter and you checked how many times I mentioned stablecoins, at least 95% of my
Yeah.
tweets. And that's not because I want to be obnoxious, but that's because 95% of my thoughts are about stablecoin for better or worse.
Conviction's important, man. Yeah, I know. I feel that too. Like I think what really was like kind of eye-opening for crypto was when I was in London and I wanted to like just split a bill with one of my friends and literally it was like like we either have to do a bank transfer, which is just like the idea of that. Like even the Citibank app is so like primitive actually in my opinion. It's not great.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
like to go through that and then to send a transfer is significantly more complex actually than
Yeah.
and slower and clunkier than sending money through Bitcoin or crypto or stables, right? And
Yeah.
I think that was like kind of eye-opening. But so yeah, let's
I
talk
think,
about like, continue.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well,
I was
I
just
was
say,
gonna transition. Yeah.
go, Jacob, go, run with it.
No, but I was gonna say, so I mean, like, so you're interested in stables. What are you doing with it? I mean, one tweet that was really interesting for us was you were talking about like essentially going like life first into stables, like earn in stables, save in stables, which is where Axel comes in, and then spend in stables. And that's kind of like, is that like a worldview you see happening? Do you think, and what's the timeline for that becoming like a reality, if it is?
Yeah. That's a really funny question because I tweeted that out, right? I was like, hey, if you're a company building in stables, you should raise in stables and spend in stables and save in stables and everything like that. And some people are like, oh, hell yeah. And some people are like, Dante, you're ridiculous. Like, you're an idiot. And I see both sides. Like, I live in the US. I use my credit card and life is good and all fine. And truthfully, it's not a big pain in the ass. Like, I can live my life really, really easily on a daily basis in New York City, going and using my Chase card or my Amex card. And I don't need to use stablecoins inherently. Now, that being said, that's one isolated incident where I am really plugged into the most advanced financial system in the world. But obviously, we know that that isn't the case everywhere. Like to your point, I had a friend come visit me from Israel the other week, and I paid for dinner. He wanted to pay me back, and it's like part of the reason that stablecoins are so exciting is that they're not trapped within an application, right? If I had money in Venmo, I can't send that money to his PayPal account. If I have money, sitting in my Wise, I can't send that money to someone else's, Venmo account. And so for me, it's really about the unification of currency at large. Okay, but like when we talk about do I need to go out and use stablecoins every day? No. But I think if you look at like if you take the scenario on its extremes, would I rather have everything be on chain or would I rather have everything be off chain? I would absolutely, without question, want everything to be on chain because it's not about, how great it is for me to go and spend my Visa, but if everything is on chain, it means I'm able to take advantage of DeFi funds
Yeah.
and save and earn like I am with Axel, right? But it also means that I'm able to send money around the world far, far, far easier than
Yeah.
I am today, right? And so if you look at it like that and you're choosing between two different extremes, to me it becomes very, very clear. Now, obviously, there's a lot of nuances around this on again, do I need it every day? No. Where does first mile and last mile play into it? But part of the reason that there are so many companies that are building the first mile and last mile solutions, whether it be ramps or orchestrators or wallet providers or this, that, or the other thing, is because today that's the hardest thing to do is get money from off chain to
Yeah.
on chain. There are a lot of amazing companies that can do this, but obviously geographically dispersed and everything like that. But once you're on chain, once you have stablecoins, regardless of what chain you're on, regardless of what stablecoin it even is, your life becomes 100 million times easier to get that money where you want it to go and to have that money behave in a way that you want it to behave without the intermediaries or the blockers of the traditional financial system, especially if you're in emerging markets or places that are not, that don't have super, super built up financial systems.
Yeah, no, fully agree. I think I do think stablecoins are probably like the Trojan horse. I think people say this all the time for like crypto adoption. I think very established. I think building for a stablecoin universe is interesting where people earn in stables, their corporate treasuries are in stables. People are spending
Yeah.
in stables in Argentina, just immediately like, you go to a vendor and it immediately goes through. I was visiting Egypt. Uh, like it's so interesting. I went to Egypt and Thailand in the course of like 2 months. And in Egypt, absolutely no one on earth wants the Egyptian pound. Like no one wants it there. Like to the point where they'll like reject like you go to like especially a tourist attraction like the pyramids and like they'll really try to shake you down if you have an American accent for US dollars because they'll assume that you have it. Um, I made the mistake of converting my dollars to pounds there. But then if you go to Bangkok, like they do expect that you pay in like I think it's I forgot the name of
Bot.
it.
Thai
Bot.
bot.
Yeah. So you got to pay in bot. So it's like interesting that there's that like there is still cultural differences between accepting like people's own fiat in their own countries. But at the end of the day, like people will eventually onboard to, I think, stables. It'll be a leapfrogging thing for a lot of people. And by when I mean people, I mean I think most vendors, like stores in these countries, have like, digital payments already. Talking about like the literal markets and stuff in these places will probably accept crypto more before they accept Visa or MasterCard.
And I think that's the beauty of it, though, is the ability to choose. Like financial freedom is super, super important. Like Coinbase's entire mission is surrounding economic freedom. And the fact that you can choose when you're on chain what currency you are using without going through intermediaries is really, really big. Right. Like I believe in a world of hundreds, thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of stable coins. But I think that at the end of the day, the balance that you're going to see on your phone is only in dollars or Egyptian pounds or whatever the hell you want it to be in. But the conversion that goes between can be done in a decentralized manner. Like I think a lot about and I talk a lot about and I work a lot in sort of that on-chain FX space. And right now, a lot of the on-chain FX is like fiat A
Yeah.
into stablecoin and then out of fiat B. But I
Mm.
think every single currency in the world is eventually going to have its own stablecoin. In fact, I think it's going to have two. It's going to have a spending version,
Yeah.
right? And then it's going to have a saving version, which is the equivalent of like a bond. And I think that the most likely route is like, hey, let's get all of the money on chain, even if it's sitting in like an Egyptian pound stablecoin that no one really wants, because that makes it a whole lot easier and a whole
Yeah.
lot more free for people to get to USDC
Yeah.
or USD or whatever it might be. And I think that governments are really going to have their hands forced because, to your point, Egypt is not the only case where people don't actually want their native currency, but
Yeah.
governments are going to be forced to bring that on chain because if they don't, they're going to risk total dollarization of their economy, which is like
Yeah.
the last thing that they want. And so when
Probably.
you have all of these local currency stablecoins, it's like it's going to be that magnet that brings all of this capital on chain and allows it to flow more freely around the world. That's what I'm really excited for.
I have a cozy-esque quote on this where it's like the remnant of like the British Empire is the English language, where like
Yeah.
everyone on Earth, if it's like a serious business conversation, has someone who speaks English. I remember when we were kids. I know you grew up in the U.S., so like in the U.S. there's like a big thing to learn Chinese, and like that was kind of pressed on people who were like I think Gen
Yeah.
Z, and like now it's like everyone speaks English, so like you actually maybe you don't need to speak Chinese, even though it would be helpful, and who even knows with like the different translation stuff, but English is the remnant of the British Empire. I think, and this is the cozy take, it's like the remnant of the American Empire will be the US dollar through stablecoins. And like really building this up, I mean, like if you believe like the Elon, like, will explore the whole world, I do think the US dollar will be like if we ever become intergalactic, we'll be transacting through stablecoins and they'll be pegged
Well,
to the
that's the
US
thing.
dollar. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, Kobe, take it a step further. Like you watch Star Wars and they have this idea of like the Republic credit, like
Yeah.
the monetary coin for the
Universe.
entire universe,
Yeah.
right? And some people accept it if they're in the Galactic Empire, the Republic Empire, and some people on the Outer Rim don't. And so you need that sort of unification of money, and that's really hard to do with fiat currency, and very very easy to do with stables, right? And like that in itself, the freedom to move between those stables is something that's super super huge to me. I think like when you look back historically speaking and you go all the way from like the Lydian stater, which is like the first
Yeah.
coin, all the way up to where we are today, it still very much follows that like hockey stick curve. Like there is a very very big jump between the fiat system today and stables, and it's a much larger jump than a lot of people realize. And it happened within the span of 10 years or something like that, where most people were stuck in that financial system for much 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 longer than that. So it follows that same sort of technical adoption curve that you would see elsewhere, but it happened a lot later than most people would think, right? We saw innovation in flight, in computing, in all of these like really important areas far before we saw this type of innovation that happens in finance. And so the way that I see stablecoins is like it's sort of compensating for the Luddites of the world who have resisted the change of monetary policy.
Interesting. So my main follow-up question from that is, you really think if we become an intergalactic species that we would be using different currencies and not just like one token, you know?
I mean, it's a power law thing, right? Like you look at FX today, and most of FX is done in dollars. The
Yeah.
dollar is still like considered one of the strongest currencies in the world. So we may have, USDC or, Earth dollar or whatever the hell it is, be a fundamental part of that
Yeah.
equation. But because it's on chain, there's no reason why we can't have, Mars dollar and Venus dollar and everything like that. And I think like what we see, especially with a lot of these newer issuers that are popping up, is like ownership of money, especially when it comes to yielding the benefits of that money, yield, I guess. And you guys are heavily focused on that at Axel, is like more and more people want to control the full stack
Yeah.
of that monetary policy. And if people want to spin up their own stablecoins, I'm all for it. There might be stablecoins that get very little use and are super, super hyper localized into
Yeah.
one little area, and there might be ones that surpass the dollar. I have no idea. But SpaceX today is using, Bridge for payouts across different countries on Earth. God knows what happens when we're, in different planets. But I am
Yeah.
absolutely 100% sure that a currency based on a decentralized ledger, stablecoins, is going to be the way that interplanetary species pay one another. Absolutely certain.
What do you make of Stripe and open issuance? Kind of bringing it back to Earth in a literal sense. Like, do you think how do you think that changes the dynamic of? I mean, you brought up any, there will be a ton of different stable coins. I think that's something that people are feeling weird about. Like everyone's launching a stable coin. Stripe kind of opened it up. Like, how do
Yeah.
you feel about this writ large as someone who spends his life in stable coins?
Yeah, it's really interesting because Bridge slash Stripe and many others historically are really, really good at the orchestration on first and last mile, right? That's part of the reason why they've been able to be so successful, is because they're the best in the world at moving money from fiat to crypto and then moving money from crypto to fiat. What's happening now is that what we're seeing is the need to orchestrate what happens in the middle. And that can be done in a number of different ways, right? If you're just like a standard retail user, you can go to your Curve pool or your Uniswap pool. Obviously, that comes with slippage. It's hard to do that on long tail chains and long tail currencies. It has its own issues. You can use intent networks, also comes with limitations around how much you can move currencies and all of that stuff. If you're a larger company like Stripe, you can, do one of two things. First is you can just go to an OTC desk and do one-off transfers, especially, if you need really, really deep liquidity or whatever it might be. Or you can take the Stripe route, which is like, hey, we're going to enable open issuance. It's really easy to do if they're building a stablecoin with Bridge. So if they have a Bridge stablecoin, obviously it's a burn and mint functionality, and they can add all types of really cool incentives around it. But if it's a USDT to Bridge or a USDC to a Bridge stablecoin, the way that I understand it is they're operating it largely off their own balance sheet, and they can because they're Bridge slash Stripe, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have capital advantages like that, you might as well use them. I'm a really, really big believer in what they're doing, whether or not they're able to execute that across many, many different issuers, right? If they're able to do that with Agora, with USDT, with all of these local stablecoins that are coming out, that's going to be the real test. But I think that the fact that they're moving on this a lot faster than most others is super important.
Kind of on this note, that's somewhat related, unrelated. Did you ever care about CDBCs, or CBDs, central bank digital currencies? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like, what did you make of that whole meta? I know it was like the most hated thing ever. Recently, Tether just froze someone who had, I think, 30 mil or 25 mil. I don't think people are super aware of that fact that Tether can freeze or Circle can freeze
yeah.
people with
And they do
stablecoin.
like billions of dollars per year.
Yeah, and I don't think
Like
people pay
they
attention.
were no,
Like,
no.
in fact, actually, this is like a big thing because Tether gets so much FUD, like all this FUD about like how it's this criminal thing and it's a lubricant for crime. But it's like actually no, Tether is combating crime in a way that really would probably fuck with the thesis of decentralization because they put people over profits actually, or people over branding at least. So what do you make of like CBDCs and then also this like the stable coins being able to shut down user funds?
That's a really good question. I am a capitalist. I think that, private private entities have been able to do this better than the government can. Like we waited for the US government to create USDC or USDT. We'd be in a very, very different world than we are today. If you want to talk about CBDCs in the purest form, as in the Federal Reserve issues a stablecoin that the Federal Reserve controls, I think the biggest issue is not The biggest issue is not control in the sense where they can freeze my funds, because to your point, Circle and Tether can and actively do that today. The biggest concern is around sort of privacy and everything like that. But I I think there was like a lot of misguided fear over CBDCs. Again, I'm not saying I'm pro CBDC by any means, but I think there was a lot of hullabaloo that was unjustified because people don't understand how Tether and Circle and a lot of these
Yeah,
issuers
exactly.
work today. The one thing that I want to be very clear on is that I don't think that there will be stablecoins that are going to be super, super successful without government buy-in. We see this, like Mika, genius, awesome. Government is like, yep, I see this as a good thing. And governments should see this as a good thing, right? Like governments of countries around the world should want to tokenize their currency. They should want to create stablecoins. They should want to do all of this. And I think that they're starting to wake up and realize it, right? I said, like, hey, governments are going to want to support this to avoid dollarization. And I absolutely think that they will, whether they take a consortium model, like, the Japanese yen recently did with David Cloud, or whether they just take like a model of, hey, we're going to build the best regulation to support this economic growth. That's fine. I don't think any government is smart enough slash aggressive enough to have a pure CBDC be successful, because I think there's a lot that goes into making a currency stablecoin successful beyond just like, hey, does the government create this or not? So am I 100% pro CBDC? No. Am I 100% against CBDCs? No. I believe that there's a happy medium there.
My dad worked for the Fed, so I'm more partial to and
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
not as anti-Fed as everyone else in this space. It does make for like a nice like I have my dad's Fed vest that I wear to like crypto networking events. Always fun to wear it.
You
Um,
get shit for it?
yeah, people are just like shocked by it because it's like it looks like it's
It's
semi-official
hilarious.
merch, and it's like it doesn't look like one of those like FTX risk department t-shirts. Like it looks like
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
real because it is a real
yeah,
piece of
yeah.
art. But yeah, I
It's
always
funny
have
though.
it.
Half those people don't know what the Fed does. Like, you know
So
what I
people
mean?
don't understand that it's twofold too, that there's supervision and that there's the economic policy stuff, and that these are two separate entities. And I think America, honestly, people writ large have no idea how the world really works. And not that I do at all. I'm part of people. Like I have no idea how the world really works. I sometimes get exposed to people who are doing things such as yourself, and I think that's like kind of the way you learn. And I think everything is always nothing is as polar like it's so much easier to market a polarizing item, like look at the Kalshi poly market beef. Like this is like it's fun to watch, but it's like at the end of the day it's like, I mean prediction markets are growing actually because of the two of you guys together. And the beef is necessary because that's honestly what makes life fun. But at the end of the day, it's like honestly on 99% of things you guys are probably more aligned than
Yeah.
against each other. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's funny. It's like it's the same playbook that we saw like in the early days of like rap, when two rappers would have beef and they didn't actually have beef, they just wanted to sell more records. It's the same stuff, right? Like that beef helps a lot of people. And it's the same thing that we see all day, every day
Yeah.
in crypto. It's like crypto people, they love enemies, they love the fight, they love having something to talk about. And I think they spend a lot more time marketing than they do building really, really sound products. Not Kalshi and Polymarket, but just the
They're like the
industry in
best.
general.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna really name drop someone who'll like piss off more people, but Soros has this idea of like dynamic disequilibrium, which is like really cool. And the idea is that he wrote this in the 2000s about the tech boom of the 90s, where he's like Soros, one of the great investors of the 1900s, was like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do well in the stock market today because it all trades on sentiment. So it's and it is kind of actually reasonable because it's like, how do you predict? I have a friend who's really into like robotics is now a huge trend, but how do you predict what having, a Tesla robot in everyone's house is worth? You can't. You can't predict what having a personal computer is worth in everyone's house, or a personal like iPhone or whatever. So that's like what leads to this kind of like between that and Fed printing money leads to dynamic disequilibrium where people are trading on sentiment because they get rewarded for trading on sentiment. So going to the
Yeah.
wrap idea, like totally aligned with that. Like back in the day, this is my last little bit of my monologue. I used to be a reporter at Business Insider before SIG. And it was really funny because I tried getting SBF to do an interview with Jack Mallers, and I it was like literally the thesis
That
here
would have
was
been interesting.
the Kanye 50 Cent beef of the 2000s, where Kanye was like the new age rap. I obviously like who knows what's going on in that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
But Kanye in the 2000s was like the new age rapper. 50 Cent was like probably the last great like gangster rapper. I think there was like an interesting beef that was totally artificial between the two about like who's going to be able to like win the
yeah,
zeitgeist. I think that's like
yeah,
these narratives push humans forward. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you just dropped the word prediction like 50 times and speculation like 50 times. I think that's what has widely driven this industry forward is like gambling prediction and everything like that. Like I know you have meme coins. I saw, 'em, right? I maybe I'm just a pussy, but like I am super risk averse. Like I was never an NFT guy. I was never a meme coin guy. Like I am in this space for stable coins. And that brings me a lot of peace, I think, to not be constantly checking prices and everything like that. Because at the end of the day, it's like if you actually care about building in stable coins and changing financial infrastructure as it is for XYZ reasons, prices don't really matter. Speculation doesn't really matter, right? What matters is there's a way that things work today, which is inefficient, and there is a better way to do it. And 99% of the time, the better way to do it is through stablecoins. And so you're sort of able to take a breath and separate yourself from that sort of speculative, predictive type of chaos that you see run rampant throughout this industry. And I think that if more people focus on that and less on the predictive and speculative side, we're going to make much larger steps towards actually implementing stablecoins globally.
I can't think of a better way to end than that, you know? Like I do think I mean obviously we're aligned. I do probably spend too much time trading crypto tokens and like for the most part, you know, like it's just not worth it. It's not worth the stress, honestly. So moving and the money that I've moved to Axel, just watching that like steadily go up versus like
A beautiful thing.
yeah, it's just a lot nicer, man. So, you know, obviously I'm biased with that that assessment, but yeah, Dante, thanks again for coming on the show. Happy to have you back if you're ever interested. And yeah, see you around New York.
You let me know. And don't forget to use Axel.
Thanks, guys.